Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. Let's talk about sleep. You can see here the background is a little bit different today. It's actually the cover of my book, which is available on Amazon. So thank you for joining me. What I'd like to talk today is the difference between sleepiness and fatigue. Now they sound like they're the exact same thing, but in actuality they're not. So if you're interested in a written version of this, I recently wrote a blog post for Dr. Oz. So you can Google Daniel Barone, sleepiness versus fatigue, or Dr. Oz, sleepiness versus fatigue, and it should pop up. But let's talk about it today. And they sound like they're the exact same thing. So if I said somebody tells me, oh, they're sleepy or they're fatigued, well, what's the difference? They're used, unfortunately, interchangeably, but they're actually quite different. So sleepiness is I am going to fall asleep. So that's, for example, if somebody is sedentary and they, you leave them alone for a half an hour, they'll take a nap. These are folks who are falling asleep in the waiting rooms, for example, or God forbid, in the middle of driving, or stopped in traffic, or at their desk in some cases. So people who are sleepy, these are folks who may have obstructive sleep apnea. Their airway is closing off throughout the night and disrupting their sleep, so they're tired the next day. People who have narcolepsy, which I'll do a whole video of narcolepsy, but basically narcolepsy is the way it's portrayed in TV as movies is you're talking to someone, all of a sudden they just pass out and fall asleep. That can happen, but in reality it's a little bit more subtle, and these people are just very, very sleepy. They can fall asleep at the drop of a hat. So those are, folks who have sleepiness, and that can be also from sleep deprivation or not getting enough sleep, as we talked about recently. That's an issue where people are not getting enough sleep in general, so that can lead to somebody being sleepy. Fatigue, on the other hand, is not I'm going to fall asleep, but it's more like I just don't have the energy or the get up and go to do what I want to do. All right, so somebody who's fatigued, they're not going to necessarily fall asleep driving or fall asleep at their desk or whatever. These are people who are just saying, you know what, I would love to go to the gym, I just don't have the energy to do so. Or I get home from work and I just want to sit down on my couch and not move. Or I can't do the activities that I usually enjoy anymore because I just don't have the get up and go to do so. Now, again, that's kind of a subtle point. These folks are not necessarily falling asleep. I mean, they can, but these are people who just don't have whatever it is inside them to be able to do the things that other people may do, but they're not falling asleep. So, why is this distinction so important? Well, sleepiness, as I said, that has pretty distinct reasons for it. So, sleep deprivation, chronic insomnia, perhaps, sleep apnea, narcolepsy. There are other conditions, right? Fatigue, on the other hand, the possibilities what would lead somebody to be fatigued are as varied as the stars in the sky. People who have chronic medical illness can be fatigued. People who have sleep disorders can be fatigued. People who have depression or a lot of stress in their life, or a lot of anxiety, these people can be fatigued. Um, People who are on certain medications can be fatigued. Okay, so that's just a small snippet. I mean, vitamin deficiency, you name it, can be because of fatigue. So it's important to figure out as a sleep doc or whoever what we're dealing with here. Okay, because the treatments and the underlying problem can be very, very different. So one of the ways that we determine this is we have somebody come in for an overnight sleep test, which I'll talk about in other videos, where we get them all hooked up and wired up, or we do a home test, let's say, and that can let us know, is there sleep apnea? Are there other physical causes for their disrupted sleep? For example, kicking of the legs. Assuming that that's not the case, though, then what we would do is what's known as a NAP test, or a MSLT, a multiple sleep latency test. And basically what that is, somebody comes in overnight, they'll stay overnight, they'll be wired up just like we do with a normal in-lab test. We're looking for the same things, although we don't tend to find them, things like sleep apnea, things like body movements or whatnot. And we want to see how much they sleep. Now, Obviously, it's going to be a little bit disruptive because they're in a place they've never been before and they're covered in wires and it's not the most comfortable situation. Okay, we understand that. That's why we have them do sleep logs actually the week or so before, is to see how much sleep they're getting that week. But the real test of this is the next day. So these folks, they sleep overnight, and when they wake up in the morning, they're able to hang out, have some breakfast, not coffee though, and then the first nap, right? They've given a series of 5 naps or 5 opportunities for naps. That first nap happens about an hour and a half after they've woken up, 2 hours after they've woken up, and it's a 20-minute opportunity. Now, if they fall asleep in that 20 minutes, that's great. If not, that's also great. But that gives us information. Then they wake up, they're up for an hour and a half or so, they do another 20-minute opportunity for napping. Okay, and this happens 4 or 5 times over the course of the next day. So it's a long situation, a nighttime into the next afternoon, but really it gives a physician or whoever a lot of information as far as what's going on here. Is this sleepiness or is this fatigue? So let's say somebody's fatigued, right? Let's say somebody was diagnosed with major depression. They come in, they say, I don't feel good. I feel like my sleep is disrupted or whatever. We do a sleep test. The overnight test doesn't show much. It could show some things, but for argument's sake, it's essentially normal. The nap test in that situation may be normal because this person may be complaining of fatigue, which is not going to show up on a test like that. Whereas somebody, let's say, comes in and they're concerned about narcolepsy. They're falling asleep in class. They're falling asleep while driving. They can't get through a movie. Those folks, the overnight test will show whatever it shows, but then the nap test will show, for narcolepsy, they would have to rule out sleep apnea, but let's just say that overnight test was essentially normal. The nap test would show that these people are falling asleep very, very quickly. And not only that, they're going into deeper stages of sleep during those naps. And that lets us know, okay, this person is sleepiness, and that requires a different set of treatment versus somebody who's fatigued. So let's use these 2 examples. Somebody with narcolepsy who has sleepiness, we probably, if they wanted to, would put them on medications to help wake them up. You've all heard of the Adderalls, the Ritalins, those sorts of things. There are others like Provigil and Nuvigil called modafinil and armodafinil. Those can be useful. There's a medication we use at nighttime called Xyrem, which is basically essentially a date rape drug. And what that does, it helps to improve the depth of their sleep overnight, and they presumably wake up feeling more refreshed the next day. So these are very specific treatments for somebody who's sleepy. Whereas fatigue, let's use that person who has major depression. That person would require probably antidepressants or whatever, certainly an evaluation with a psychiatrist or a therapist. And then we would probably try to treat the fatigue that way. Okay, so sleepiness and fatigue are very, very different things, and it's important to kind of hone in on, what you may be suffering from, or as a doctor, what the patient may be suffering from, because it really ties into what we do for them. So, yeah, that's kind of the difference between sleepiness and fatigue. Please, if you have questions, go ahead and write them in the comment section. I'd like to answer as many as I can. If you're so inclined, please subscribe to my channel. There's going to be many videos like this coming down the way. If you like this video, please click like. And as always, my book is on Amazon, written by Daniel A. Barone and Lawrence A. Armour, entitled Let's Talk About Sleep. And I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video. See ya.